In the last class, we have discussed about the financial management. So today we'll discuss about the sources of finance. Finance is the lifeblood of business. So as it is interlinked with all the activities performed by their business concern. So whenever we start your own business or when we any business, it is finance is very important. So without finance, we cannot run a business. So finance is it is linked with all the activities performed by the business concern. So quantum of finance, it may be depend upon the nature of the business concerned and the situation of the business. Requirements of finance may be broadly classified into uh, sources of finance. It means the ways for mobilizing various terms of finance to the industrial concerned. Yeah. See, it is source of finance means how the finances are mobilized to the industrial concern. So sources of finance that how the companies are mobilizing finance for their requirements. So the companies need finances for purchasing of fixed assets, for the construction of office building, for purchasing raw materials, for giving salaries, for giving wages, or day-to-day expenses. So finances are required. Depending on the industrial concern, they may require for long-term or for maybe short-term needs. So finances, source of finances can be categorized into long-term financial requirements or fixed capital requirements and short-term finance requirements or working capital requirements. So let's say long-term financial requirements or fixed capital requirements. So financial requirements of the business, the requirements will be differ from firm to firm and the nature of the requirements. So it may be short-term or long-term financial requirements. Long-term financial requirement means the finance needed to acquire land and building of for business concern, for purchasing land and building, then for purchase of plant and machinery and other fixed expenditure. This long-term finance requirements means they require finance for long-term use, okay, for buying, purchasing fixed assets. So long-term financial requirement is also called as fixed capital requirements. Let's see what are the purpose of long-term finance. It is to finance fixed assets, to finance the permanent part of working capital, say for purchasing plant and machinery, okay, for purchasing fixed assets like land and building, to finance growth and expansion of business, say for they are thinking of expanding their business in other geographical areas, they need long-term finance. And for the growth of the company or the growth of the business firm, so they need long-term finance. First, we'll focus on the sources of long-term financing. First, we have shares. So under shares, we have debentures, public deposits. Under debentures, where they have retained earnings and term loans from banks. And under public deposits, we have loan from financial institutions. So we'll discuss in detail from shares. Let's see what is shares. Shares, issue of shares is the main source of long-term finance. The shares are issued by joint stock companies to the public. A company divides its capital into units of a definite face value, say of rupees 10 each or rupees 100 each. Each unit is called a share. Say a business, a business firm, let's focus on a small business firm, say 1 lakh. So this capital is, divided into units, say rupees 10 per unit. Then they have 10,000 units. So if the person having shares of rupees 5,000, then a person holding this share is called a shareholder, or 1,000 units, then he is called a shareholders. The person who holds the shares of a company, that is called shareholders. Then we have under shares, we have equity shares. Equity shares are shares which do not enjoy any preferential right in the matter of payment of dividend or repayment of capital. So equity shares means shares which they don't have preferential right. So these are the real owners of the company. Equity shareholders are the real owners of the company who has got maximum shares of a particular company or a firm. So, but they have a control over the management of the company. They can control the management of the company, and they are eligible to get dividend if the company earns profit. So equity shareholder, they don't have preferential right. Means say it is not that they have to get dividend first. Only when the company gets earned profit, they will get their shares. Okay, they will get the profit. They are the real owners of the company, and they have a control over the management of the company. Now, preference shares. Preference shares are shares which carry preferential rights over the equity shares. So when they hold a shares of a company, then they have certain rights, like receiving dividends at a fixed rate. Say when the company earns a profit, a person who is holding a preference shares, they will get a dividend, some amount of money from the profit at a fixed rate, and getting back the capital in case the company is wound up. If the company has to wound off, then the preference shareholder will definitely get the capital that they have invested in the company. So investment in these preference shares are shaped, and preference shareholder also gets dividends regularly. So this is one of the safe way of shares if you want to invest in a company shares. So equity shares are their real owners. They don't have a preferential rights, but if the company earns profit, they will definitely get the dividend. And preference shareholders, they have a certain rights, preferential rights. They they will receive dividends at a fixed rate, and if the company has wound off, they will get the capital. Then creditorship securities. This is also known as debt finance, which means the finance is mobilized from the creditors. So creditors mobilize the finance. So it is finance from the outsiders, creditors. So debenture and bonds are the two major part of the creditorship securities. So debenture and bonds, these are the major part of creditorship securities. And debenture, it is a document issued by the company. It is a certificate issued by the company under its seal acknowledging a debt. According to the Companies Act 1956, debenture includes debenture stock, bonds, and any other securities of a company, whether constituting a charge of the asset of the company or not. So debenture includes debenture stock, bonds, any other securities which constitute a charge of the assets of the company or not. So let's discuss about the debentures. Say, when a company wants to borrow a large amount of fund for a long but fixed period, when a company wants to borrow large amount of fund for a long term and for fixed period, it can borrow from the general public by issuing loan certificate called debentures. So big company or organizations, they borrow large amount of funds for a long term. So for that, they will issue a loan certificates called debentures. So they are offered to the public to subscribe in the manner as is done in the case of shares. A debenture is issued under the common seal of the company. It is a written acknowledgement of money borrowed. It specifies the terms and conditions such as rate of interest, time repayment, security offered. So when the company they want to borrow money from a large amount of fund for a long term and fixed period, say they offered certificates to the public, and this is a written acknowledgement that that specifies the terms and condition. Say they will, it is written that the rate of interest is this, time of repayment is this, and security, and all these things have to be written. And they will issue a, like the shares, they will issue this the loan certificates to the public. And when the public purchase or borrow, when they this public take the certificates, they will get the fund. And we have different types of debentures based on permanence, based on convertibility, you know, based on the negotiability. There are different types of debentures. So debentures, uh, you know, um, it may be classified as redeemable debentures and irredeemable debentures, then convertible debentures and non-convertible debentures. So redeemable debentures and irredeemable debentures, it is on the basis of permanence. Redeemable debentures is such that it can be redeemed on a specified date. Maturity period, debentures maturity period is 5 years, then it becomes redeemable on the expiry of 5 years. So we have to keep these debentures for 5 years, and after maturity of 5 years, it can be redeemed. Then irredeemable, it doesn't have a specified maturity date, so they can last throughout the company's lifetime. So thus the company redeems them only when it faces liquidation. Then convertible debentures and non-convertible debentures, it is on the basis of convertibility of the debentures. It is to attract the investors. Say some debentures, they can be converted into equity or preference shares. If the investors want to convert to equity or shares, they can convert it. And non-convertible, it cannot be converted. It will be as it is. Then retained earnings, or it is an internal source of finance. The portion of the profits which is not distributed among the shareholder, the profit that the company earns, which is not distributed among the shareholders but is retained and is used in business, is called retained earnings or plowing back of profits. So the profits the company earns in a certain year, they earn a profit, which is not distributed among the shareholders, but it is kept for future use. This amount or this profit is called retained earnings or plowing back of profit. As per Indian Companies Act, companies are required to transfer a part of their profits in reserves. You know, whatever the profits they earn, they have to keep as their reserves, because this can be used to buy fixed assets or maybe for the expansion of their business. So this is called internal financing. Means uh, it is the finance come from the internal sources, from the profits they earned. It is kept for future years, used for maybe for buying fixed assets, maybe for buying the expansions of business. So it is used from the internal. Then public deposits. It is a very old source of finance. So when modern banks were not there, people used to deposit their savings with business concerns of good repute. Even today, it is a very popular and convenient method of raising medium-term finance. The period for which business undertakings accept public deposits ranges between 6 months to 3 years. So it is a very old source of finance. So if the company, who has, if that has a reputed, if you want to invest your money, or if you want to save your money, you can, in olden days, people used to deposit their saving to a business consists of good reputations. So the period of savings or deposits ranges from 6 months to 3 years. This is the public deposits. So any member of the public can fill up the prescribed form and deposit the money with the company. The company in return issues a deposit receipt. This receipt is an acknowledgement of debt by the company. Terms and conditions of the deposit are printed on the back of the receipt. So, this is the olden days of them savings money. So they want to invest money, then they deposit their savings in a reputed company. So the member, any person who wants to save their money or deposit their money, they fill up the prescribed form and deposit the money. They can get the deposit receipt. So term and conditions of the deposits are printed on the back of the receipt. Now, borrowing from commercial banks. Traditionally, commercial banks in India, they do not grant long-term loans. So commercial banks, they do not give long-term loans. They only provide for short-term periods, not extending 1 year. So within 1 year, they can extend, they provide loans for within 1 year. So that is for short-term period. But recently, they have started giving loans for a long-term period. Commercial banks give term loans that is for more than 1 year. Now, recently, this commercial bank started giving loans for long term, maybe for more than 1 year. They give loans to organizations in either cash credits, overdrafts, term loans, purchase or discounting of bills, or issue of letter of credit. Banks help enterprises by providing loans to produce goods and contribute towards industrial growth and generate employment opportunities. Now, banks help the enterprises by giving loans to produce goods and contribute towards industrial growth and general employment opportunities. Financial institution. So the well-developed financial systems help the business to achieve growth by making funds available to them. So the financial institutions provide long-term loans to the organizations to achieve their growth. Okay? Then the government has established financial institutions all over the countries to provide finance to businesses. Some of the important special financial institutions like Industrial Finance Corporation of India, State Financial Corporations, then Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation of India are some financial institutions that provide loans to the business concerned for the growth and development of the business. Now we come to short-term financial requirements or working capital requirements. This is the finance requirements for daily purposes for the working of the business. So the firm need certain expenditures like procurement of raw materials, payment of wages, day-to-day expenditures, etc. This short-term financial requirements, this is for the operation of the business. So it is maybe for the procurement of raw materials, for payment of salary and wages, day-to-day expenditures. This is to meet with the help of short-term financial requirements, which will meet the operational expenditure of the firm. And it is also called as the working capital. Short-term source of finance include bank credit, customer advances, then trade credit, factoring, factoring, public deposits, money market instrument. So bank credit, it is the credit available to a business or firm from a banking institutions. This is in the form of loans. Bank credit means it is given in the form of loans. Then customer advances, it is like a liability account. Okay, so it is stored all payments from customers for goods or services that have not been delivered. So when we make advance payment from the customer and the company receives the payment and the service or product is not yet delivered to the customer. So this is the customer advances. Then, then factoring, it allows the business to obtain immediate capital or money based on the future income due on an account receivable or business invoiced. Trade credit, it refers to the credit extended by the supplier of goods or services to his or her customer in a normal course of business. Credit extended by the supplier to the customer in a normal course of business. It occupies a very important position in short-term sources financing due to the competition. Almost all the traders and manufacturers are required to extend credit facility, without which there is no possibility of staying back in the business. So it is the credit extended to the supplier by the supplier to the customer. So it is a spontaneous course of finance that arises in the normal business transaction of the firm without specific negotiations. In order to get this source of finance, the buyer should have acceptable and dependable creditworthiness and reputation in the market. Then factoring. So factoring means it allows a business to obtain immediate capital or money based on the future income. Cash flow is necessary to meet commitments, but credit sale is the order of the day. The most vulnerable segments are the small and medium sector enterprises. So factoring is something like the seller, the factoring company. Uh, they it is like the factoring company. They will pay advance to the seller. When the seller send invoices to the buyer, the factoring company will pay 75 to 80% to the seller, and the seller will sell the product to the buyer. Then this buyer will pay the cash, or payment will be made to the factoring company. And if the buyer is not paying uh, cash or something like that, the factoring company will chase the late payers. So it is like that. So poor bookkeeping and collection mechanisms, along with inadequate and delayed institutional credit, hasten their untimely sickness. So, good bookkeeping and collection mechanism is very important in factoring business. Public deposits or term deposits, these are in the nature of unsecured deposits. So this have been for solicited by the firms, both large and small, from general public, primarily for the purpose of financing their working capital requirements. In order to serve the purpose of the for the working capital requirements, they for public deposits or term deposits in the form of unsecured deposits. And commercial papers, it represents a short-term sources unsecured promissory note issued by the firms that have a fairly high credit rating. This was first introduced in USA, an important money market instrument. Commercial paper is a source of short-term sources finance to only large companies with sound financial position. So commercial papers, it is one of these sources of finance to big companies with good or sound financial position. Now, capitalization. Capitalization refers to the valuation of the total business. Capitalization means it is the valuation of the total business. So it is the sum of on capital plus borrowed capital. This is owner's capital plus borrowed from outsiders capital. It is a total of owner's capital plus borrowed capital. So it is nothing but the valuation of long-term funds invested in the business. It refers to the way in which its long-term obligations are distributed between different classes of both owners and creditors. So capitalization means it is the valuation of the total business, value of the total business. So capitalization is the sum of owner's capital plus borrowed capital. So it is long-term obligations. Its long-term obligations are distributed between the owners and creditors. Let's see the types of capitalization. We have overcapitalization and undercapitalization. Overcapitalization, it's with abundance of capital, undercapitalized with shortage of capital. An enterprise becomes overcapitalized when its earning capacity does not justify the amount of capitalization. Their earning capacity, it doesn't justify the amount of capitalization. Overcapitalization, it occurs when a company issued more debt and equity than its assets are worth. An enterprise becomes, overcapitalized when its earning capacity does not justify the amount of capitalization. The market value of the company is less than the total capitalized value of the company. So overcapitalized company might be paying more in interest and dividend payments, more in interest and dividend in order to sustain the business for long term. Let's see what are the causes of overcapitalization. So the causes of overcapitalizations can be acquiring assets at inflated price, over issue of capital, formation during the boom period, overestimation of earnings, shortage of capital, liberal dividend policy. It's overcapitalizing is overfunding. That is, the company has raised excessive funds as compared to its current requirements. Overinvestment means they raise the company with excessive funds as compared to its normal current requirements. They over issue of capital, then this company might be formed during the boom period. Okay, then overestimation of earnings means it's kind of mismanagement. Then shortage of capital, liberal dividend policies. So these are the causes of overcapitalization. Then undercapitalization, it is opposite of overcapitalization. It is a condition when the real value of the corporation is more than the book value. So underfunding, undercapitalization means underfunding. The company does not have enough funds or cash flow to meet the current needs of the business operation. The market value is high compared to overcapitalization. A company is said to be undercapitalized when it's earning exceptionally higher profit as compared to other, or the value of its asset is higher than the capital raised. The following causes for undercapitalization: acquisition of assets during recession. So during the recession period, they acquire assets, then underestimation of earning, They underestimate that how much they will be earning, then unforeseeable increase in earning, maybe because of the acceptance by the customers, they may increase their earnings. People accept the product or services of the company, so there is an increase in earning. Then conservative dividend policy, proper management of dividend policy, and efficient management. So for all these reasons, there is the undercapitalization of the business firm happens. And last, financial security is a document of a certain monetary value. So financial security, it refers to stock and bonds which are negotiable. Derivatives are also considered as a common type of financial security with its growing popularity in recent years. So we have equity securities, debt securities, derivative securities. Holding an equity interest means contributing to the capital of the company. The different types of debt securities, bonds, debentures, debt securities, borrowed from others. Okay. Then derivatives, which value is derived from the underlying asset. So you don't need all these things. What you need is you try to understand the sources of finance, long term and short term. So short term is also known as working capital requirements and long term fixed asset requirements. So long term is for purchasing fixed assets, and then short term is for the normal working operations of the business firm. Yes, if you have anything to ask, so your exam is next week or what?
Next week, ma'am.
Next week. Uh, did Dinah ma'am test
Yes, ma'am. One unit test, I think.
one unit test? I will let you know in the evening whether I will take test or not. Should we take test, another test, or one test is enough for you?
Ma'am, it depends upon how you will mark for the interim, like how internal will go. Like we have two assignments also given before interim.
The Dinah ma'am has already given you assignment, one assignment,
Yes, ma'am. And one
one
test. Yeah,
one test and one assignment.
yes.
Okay, I will let you know through WhatsApp. Okay. If you have anything to ask, so tomorrow will be our last class. Okay. So I'll let you know whether we'll have tests or not. Shall I take your attendance?